The emergency beacon screamed across the void of space, its desperate signal bouncing between relay stations scattered throughout the Confederation. Ambassador pressed her six-fingered hands against the communication console. Her blue-scaled face etched with worry as static filled the bridge of the diplomatic vessel Harmony's voice. "Still no response from the Third Fleet," reported Navigation Officer, his tentacles dancing nervously across his control panel. The young Aquarian's normally steady voice carried an edge of panic that made stomach twist into knots. Through the viewport, the massive bulk of the dreadnought Blood Fang hung in space like a metallic predator, its weapon ports glowing an ominous red. The warship dwarfed their small diplomatic vessel, its jagged hull bristling with plasma cannons and missile batteries. Smaller fighters swarmed around it like angry insects, their engines leaving trails of superheated gas in the darkness. "They're hailing us again," announced communications specialist Thera, her feathered crest flat against her skull in a display of fear. The avian's talons clicked against her console as she worked. "Same message as before, surrender immediately or be destroyed." Closed her eyes and took a deep breath, trying to center herself. The peace talks on Prime had been going so well. 3 months of careful negotiation had brought the Confederation and the Empire closer to an armistice than they had been in decades. But now, trapped in this remote system by a rogue battle group, all that progress seemed meaningless. "How long until the Third Fleet arrives?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. His tentacles drooped. 47 hours minimum. Admiral's task force is responding, but they're 3 systems away. "We don't have 47 hours, muttered. The commander had given them 6 hours to surrender before he would open fire. That deadline was now less than 2 hours away. The Harmony's voice had been returning from the successful peace summit when long-range sensors detected the ships waiting in ambush. Captain had immediately changed course, but the enemy vessels were faster and had quickly surrounded them. Now they hung dead in space, their engines disabled by precise ion cannon fire, waiting for either rescue or destruction. "Ambassador," Thera called out, her voice gaining a note of hope. "I'm detecting a response to our distress signal. It's strange, though." "Strange how?" "The identification codes are Confederation, but I don't recognize the ship class. The signal is coming from the edge of the system, but sensors show nothing there." Frowned, put the message through. The main screen flickered to life, revealing a human face, blinked in surprise. She had heard of humans, of course, the members of the Confederation having joined only 5 years ago after first contact was established with their of Earth. But she had never seen one in person. This human appeared to be male, with short brown hair and intense green eyes. Most striking were the scars that crossed his face, speaking of violence survived. "This is Colonel Steele of the Terran Colonial Marines," the human said, his voice carrying an accent couldn't place. "We received your distress call. What's your situation?" "Colonel Steele, this is Ambassador of the diplomatic vessel Harmony's voice. We're trapped by a battle group consisting of 1 dreadnought and 12 fighters. Our engines are disabled and we're facing imminent destruction." The human's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. "Understood, Ambassador. How many hostiles are we looking at?" "As I said, 1 dreadnought and 12 fighters. The dreadnought alone outguns most of our heavy cruisers. Colonel, I appreciate your willingness to help, but unless you're leading a fleet, there's nothing you can do. These are hardened military vessels, not pirates or raiders." Colonel Steele smiled and felt a chill run down her spine. There was something predatory in that expression, something that reminded her of the apex predators from her ancient forests. "Ambassador, you seem to be under the impression that we need superior numbers to handle this situation. Let me ask you something. In your research on human military doctrine, did you come across the term shock and awe?" Exchanged glances with her bridge crew. "I'm not familiar with that phrase." "You will be. Marines, we have a rescue mission. Time to show these lizards why you don't mess with Confederation diplomats." The transmission cut out, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Finally spoke up, his voice barely above a whisper. "Ambassador, I'm reading massive energy signatures throughout the system, multiple contacts materializing from stealth. They're everywhere." The tactical display lit up like a festival celebration. Dozens of contacts appeared seemingly from nowhere, surrounding the formation. But these weren't the sleek, curved hulls of traditional Confederation vessels. These ships were angular, aggressive-looking things covered in armor plating and bristling with weapons that had never seen before. Mother of stars, breathed Thera. Where did they come from? The largest of the human ships, a massive vessel that somehow managed to look both elegant and terrifying, moved into position directly between the Harmony's voice and the dreadnought. Its hull was painted in dark gray with red accents, and its name was visible in bold letters along the side. TCMS Reaper's Edge. This is Colonel Steele to all vessels, came the human's voice over the general communication channel. You are in violation of Confederation space and threatening a diplomatic mission. You have 30 seconds to power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded, or we will consider you hostile combatants. The response from the commander was immediate and predictable. Human scum, you dare threaten the glorious empire? We are 13 ships strong. You will burn in the fires of our cannons. 20 seconds, Steele replied calmly. Watched in fascination as the human ships began moving into attack formation. Their movements were precise, coordinated, like a pack of predators surrounding their prey. She had studied human culture extensively in preparation for the peace talks, but this was her first time seeing their military in action. 10 seconds. The dreadnought's main guns began to glow as they charged for firing. The fighter craft spread out in attack formation, their pilots no doubt confident in their numerical advantage and superior firepower. 5 seconds. Ambassador, you might want to shield your eyes. What do you mean? The universe turned white. Once vision cleared, she stared in absolute shock at the tactical display. Where 13 ships had been moments before, now only twisted wreckage drifted in space. The massive dreadnought had been split almost in half, its hull glowing cherry red from whatever weapons had struck it. The fighters had simply vanished. What in the name of the eternal void just happened? Whispered. Target eliminated, came Steele's voice, as calm as if he had just ordered lunch. Ambassador, we're sending over a repair team to get your engines back online. Are there any casualties aboard your vessel? Found herself struggling to form words. No casualties. Colonel Steele, what kind of weapons do you humans possess? I've never seen anything like that. Standard kinetic bombardment system, Ambassador. Nothing fancy. We just accelerate metal really, really fast. That was standard. Steele's chuckle was audible over the comm. Ma'am, that was just the warm-up. We humans don't believe in fair fights. We believe in overwhelming superiority and going home to our families. A human shuttle detached from one of the warships and approached the Harmony's voice. As it drew closer, could see that it too was heavily armed, with weapon ports and armor plating that made it look more like a fighter craft than a transport. Colonel, I must ask, how many ships do you have? In this system, 43. In the local sector, about 200. Earth takes the safety of Confederation citizens very seriously, Ambassador. Felt her knees go weak. 200 warships. The entire Confederation Navy numbered less than 500 vessels, and most of those were older designs with limited firepower. How had humanity built such a massive fleet in only 5 years? Permission to come aboard? Steele asked. I'd like to make sure you're all right, and my medics should check everyone for shock and stress injuries. Of course, Colonel, docking bay 2 is open. As the human shuttle settled into the docking bay with mechanical precision, tried to process what she had just witnessed. The humans had appeared from nowhere, destroyed a superior force in seconds, and were now offering medical assistance as if nothing unusual had happened. The airlock cycled open and Colonel Steele stepped onto her ship. Up close, he was even more intimidating than she had expected. Tall and broad-shouldered, he moved with the fluid grace of a natural predator. His uniform was practical rather than decorative, and every piece of equipment he carried looked like it had been designed for maximum efficiency in combat. Behind him came 4 other humans, 3 males and 1 female, all carrying what assumed were medical supplies. But even the medics looked like they could tear apart a squad of warriors with their bare hands. Ambassador, Steele said, extending his hand in the human gesture of greeting. I apologize for the dramatic rescue. We prefer subtlety when possible, but they weren't giving us much choice. Took his hand, surprised by the firm grip and the calluses she could feel through her scales. Colonel, I have to ask, where did you come from? Our sensors showed nothing in this system except the ships. Steele smiled that predatory smile again. We've been shadowing patrol groups for weeks, gathering intelligence on their movements and tactics. When we received your distress signal, Task Force Omega was in perfect position to respond. Task Force Omega, one of 6 rapid response groups positioned throughout Confederation space. We specialize in search and rescue, diplomatic protection, and what our brass likes to call aggressive negotiations. One of the medics, the female, approached with a scanner in her hands. "Sir, I'm going to check your stress levels and cardiovascular function. What you just experienced was pretty intense." His tentacles curled in confusion. "I'm fine, really. It's just... How did you destroy those ships so quickly?" The dreadnought had shields rated to stop anything in the Confederation arsenal. The medic, whose name tag read Sergeant Martinez, grinned. "Honey, those shields were designed to stop energy weapons and standard missiles. They weren't built to handle tungsten rods moving at 30% of light speed." 30% of light speed, felt dizzy. Colonel Steele nodded. "Kinetic kill vehicles. Simple physics, really. Mass times velocity equals a very bad day for whoever's on the receiving end. We've found that most species focus so heavily on energy weapons that they forget about good old-fashioned kinetic impact." "But how do you accelerate projectiles to such speeds?" "Magnetic acceleration systems. We launch from ships positioned several AU out from the target, calculate trajectory and timing, and let physics do the rest. By the time the target realizes they're under attack, the projectiles are already hitting them." Realized her mouth was hanging open and closed it with a snap. That's terrifyingly effective." "It gets the job done," Steele agreed. "The important thing is that you and your crew are safe. The peace talks can continue, and hopefully we can avoid situations like this in the future." Sergeant Martinez finished scanning Thera and moved on too. "Ambassador, your blood pressure is elevated, and I'm reading signs of acute stress response. That's completely normal given the circumstances, but I'd recommend some rest and relaxation when you get back to base." "I don't think I'll be able to rest for quite some time," admitted. "Colonel, what happens now? The Empire will demand an explanation for the destruction of their ships." Steele's expression hardened. "The Empire will receive a full report detailing how their rogue battle group attacked a diplomatic vessel in Confederation space. If they want to make an issue of it, they're welcome to try." "You're not concerned about retaliation?" "Ambassador, let me share something with you. Earth isn't like the other Confederation worlds. We've spent our entire history fighting wars. Wars against nature, wars against each other, wars against every predator and disaster our planet could throw at us. We've gotten very, very good at it." He gestured toward the viewport, where the human fleet was visible in the distance. "Every one of those ships is crewed by volunteers who grew up on a world where everything wanted to kill them. Our gravity is higher than most species can survive. Our atmosphere is corrosive to many aliens. Our weather includes storms that can level cities and natural disasters that can reshape continents." "I've heard Earth referred to as a," said quietly. "That's exactly what it is. And it made us into something the galaxy hasn't seen before. We don't just survive hostile environments, we thrive in them. We don't just defend ourselves from threats, we hunt them down and eliminate them completely." Steele moved to the viewport and looked out at the debris field that had once been a battle group. "The Confederation called for backup when they accepted Earth as a member. They thought they were getting another peaceful species to add to their alliance. What they got instead was something much more useful." "What's that?" Steele turned back to her, and his smile was no longer predatory. It was genuinely warm and reassuring. "They got, and don't just respond to threats, Ambassador. We end them." Admiral or of the Imperial Navy stood in the command center of the Fortress Station Dominion's fist, his scaled hands gripping the tactical display so tightly his claws left scratches in the metal. The holographic representation of the system floated before him, showing the debris field where Battle Group 7 had met its end 3 days ago. "Replay the sensor logs again," he commanded, his voice a low growl that made his subordinates flinch. The technician, a nervous young named, manipulated the controls with trembling fingers. The hologram shifted, showing the moments before the human attack. 13 proud vessels in perfect formation, surrounding a single diplomatic ship. Then, in an instant, death from the void. The sensor readings were almost impossible to believe. "Sir," ventured, his voice barely above a whisper, "the projectile velocities recorded are unprecedented. Our best estimates suggest the kinetic energy involved was equivalent to antimatter warheads. Or's yellow eyes narrowed. And you're certain there were no energy signatures before impact? None, sir. The projectiles were completely passive. No engine signatures, no energy emissions, nothing that our early warning systems could detect. They appeared on sensors less than 2 seconds before impact. 43 human vessels, Or muttered, studying the tactical data. How did they mask their approach? Our long-range scanners should have detected them hours before they reached firing position. Intelligence Officer Law approached the display, her movements careful and precise. She was one of the few subordinates or trusted to give him unpleasant truths. Sir, based on our analysis of the wreckage and the human ship configurations, we believe they use a form of adaptive camouflage combined with minimal energy emissions. Their ships essentially became invisible to our sensors by mimicking the background radiation of space. Stealth technology, or SPAT, coward's tools. Perhaps, sir, but undeniably effective. More concerning is their apparent ability to coordinate a fleet-wide attack without detectable communications. The timing of their strike was perfect, down to the microsecond. Or turned away from the display, his mind racing. The Empire had dominated this region of space for over 2 centuries through superior firepower and aggressive expansion. Their battle doctrine was simple and effective: bring overwhelming force to bear and crush any opposition. But these humans had turned that doctrine on its head. "What do we know about this Earth?" he asked. La activated a secondary display, showing the blue-green world that the humans called home. "It's classified as a Class 12, sir. Gravity is 0.87 standard, but the atmospheric pressure and composition make it lethal to most known species without protective gear. The planet experiences extreme weather phenomena, tectonic instability, and has produced an unusually high number of apex predators. And the humans evolved there naturally." "Yes, sir. They're persistence predators designed by evolution to chase down prey over long distances. High endurance, excellent problem-solving abilities, and an unusual tolerance for stress and injury. Their reflexes are approximately 30% faster than ours." Or studied the planetary data with growing unease. The Empire had conquered dozens of worlds, but they had always avoided. The cost in lives and resources to pacify such hostile environments was simply too high. But these humans had not only survived on such a world, they had thrived. "Sir," interrupted hesitantly, "we're receiving a priority transmission from High Command." The main screen flickered to life, revealing the imposing figure of Fleet Admiral X, Supreme Commander of the Imperial Navy. His face bore the marks of countless battles, and his eyes blazed with barely controlled fury. "Admiral Orr," X began without preamble, "I trust you have an explanation for the complete destruction of Battle Group 7. Or straightened to attention. "Sir, the humans ambushed our forces with weapons technology we have never encountered. Their kinetic bombardment system bypassed all of our defensive measures. I've read the preliminary reports. What I want to know is how a species that has been spacefaring for less than a century managed to outfight our best ships. Sir, I believe we have underestimated the humans' capabilities. Their approach to warfare is fundamentally different from anything we've faced before. They don't rely on superior numbers or firepower alone. They use deception, misdirection, and weapons systems designed to exploit the weaknesses in our defenses." X's expression darkened. "Are you suggesting that our fleet is inferior to these newcomers?" "No, sir. I'm suggesting that we need to adapt our tactics if we hope to defeat them. The humans have clearly studied our military doctrine and developed countermeasures specifically designed to neutralize our advantages. Then we will give them a demonstration of power they will not forget," X declared. "I am dispatching the 3rd Battle Fleet to your position. 6 dreadnoughts, 18 heavy cruisers, and 40 destroyer escorts. Find these human ships and destroy them all. Show the galaxy that the Empire does not tolerate threats to its sovereignty." The transmission ended, leaving or staring at the blank screen. 64 ships against 43. Under normal circumstances, he would have been confident in victory. But after seeing what the humans could do with their kinetic weapons, he found himself questioning whether numbers alone would be sufficient. "Sir," La said quietly, "there's something else you should know about the humans. According to our intelligence files, they have a saying, 'Quantity has a quality all its own.'" "What does that mean?" It means they understand the value of superior numbers, sir. But they also have another saying: if you're in a fair fight, you didn't plan properly. Or pondered this as he watched the tactical display cycle through various scenarios. Every simulation showed the same result. Even with superior numbers, the fleet would take heavy casualties against the human kinetic bombardment system. "What are their fleet movements?" he asked. "Unknown, sir. Our long-range scouts can't locate them. It's as if they've vanished completely." Ships don't just vanish. They're out there somewhere planning their next move. Or turned to his communications officer. "Send a message to all patrol groups. Maximum alert status. Any contact with human vessels is to be reported immediately." As his staff worked to implement the new orders, or found himself thinking about the human colonel who had led the rescue mission. Steele, his name was. The recording from the diplomatic vessel showed a being who radiated quiet confidence, someone who spoke of destroying superior forces as casually as discussing the weather. "La," he said suddenly, "I want everything we can find on human military history. If we're going to fight these, we need to understand how they think." Hours later, or sat in his private quarters, scrolling through the intelligence reports that had been compiled about human warfare. What he read made his blood run cold. These beings had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of killing their own kind. Their history was an endless catalog of innovations in destruction, each conflict more devastating than the last. They had developed chemical weapons, biological weapons, nuclear weapons, and countless other methods of mass destruction. They had fought wars that consumed entire continents and conflicts that lasted for decades. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to learn from each defeat, adapting their tactics and technology with frightening speed. One report in particular caught his attention. It described a human military doctrine called combined arms warfare, which involved coordinating different types of forces to achieve maximum effectiveness. Infantry, armor, artillery, and air support working together in perfect synchronization. The humans had turned warfare into a science. Another document outlined something called asymmetric warfare, in which smaller forces used unconventional tactics to defeat larger opponents. The humans had apparently mastered this concept, using everything from guerrilla tactics to technological advantages to overcome superior numbers. But perhaps most unsettling was a tactical manual that discussed something called total war. The humans had developed the concept of targeting not just enemy military forces, but their entire civilization's capacity to wage war. Supply lines, industrial capacity, civilian infrastructure, even the enemy's will to fight. Nothing was considered off-limits. Or set down the data pad and stared out the viewport at the stars. The Empire had always been successful because their enemies fought according to established rules of warfare. Honorable combat between military forces, with clear objectives and acceptable losses. But these humans seemed to view war as a problem to be solved rather than a contest of honor. A chime indicated an incoming priority message. The communication screen activated to show the face of Captain Al, commander of the deep patrol vessel Hunter's Pride. "Admiral Orr, sir, we've detected unusual sensor readings in the Altair system. No visual confirmation, but there are gravitational anomalies that suggest the presence of large objects moving at high speed." "Could it be the human fleet?" "Unknown, sir. The readings are strange. It's almost as if space itself is being distorted." Or frowned, "How many objects?" "Difficult to say, sir. The anomalies keep shifting and changing. Conservative estimate would be 50 to 60 contacts, but they could be false readings caused by some kind of interference." "Maintain observation from maximum range, Captain. Do not engage under any circumstances. If those are human ships, they're probably already aware of your presence." "Understood, sir," Hunter's Pride out. The transmission ended, leaving or alone with his thoughts. 50 to 60 contacts in the Altair system. That was more ships than had destroyed Battle Group 7. Were the humans massing for a major offensive, or were they simply positioning assets to defend Confederation space? He activated his personal communicator and contacted Fleet Admiral X directly. The older's image appeared on the screen, his features twisted into a permanent scowl. "Admiral Orr, I trust you have good news." "Sir, we may have located the human fleet. Captain Al is reporting gravitational anomalies in the Altair system that could indicate the presence of large vessels." How many? Possibly 60 ships, sir. But the readings are inconsistent. It could be some kind of sensor jamming or deception technology. X leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with predatory interest. Then we will spring our own trap. The third battle fleet will arrive at your position in 18 hours. We will proceed to Altair and engage these humans directly. Sir, I recommend caution. The humans have shown they prefer to fight from ambush positions using long-range weapons. If we advance into the Altair system, we could be walking into a trap. Let them try to ambush us, X snarled. 64 ships of the line against whatever pathetic force they can muster. We will show them the true meaning of power. Or wanted to argue, but he recognized the tone in his superior's voice. Fleet Admiral X had made his decision, and nothing would change his mind. Understood, sir. We will be ready. The transmission ended, and a returned to studying the tactical display. In 18 hours, the most powerful battle fleet in history would advance into what could very well be the most sophisticated trap ever constructed. And despite having numerical superiority, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to walk into a slaughter. The humans had already proven they didn't fight fair. What other surprises did these have waiting in the darkness between the stars? The command bridge of the TCMS Reapers edge hummed with controlled activity as Colonel Steele reviewed the tactical situation. Three-dimensional holographic displays showed the positions of every ship in both fleets, while data streams provided real-time updates on enemy movements and capabilities. Around him, the bridge crew worked with the quiet efficiency that came from years of training and combat experience. Colonel, reported Lieutenant Commander Sarah from the sensor station, Third Battle Fleet has entered the outer edge of the Altair system. 64 ships total, arranged in standard battle formation. They're proceeding directly toward our projected position. Steele nodded, his eyes never leaving the tactical display. Time to intercept. 4 hours and 37 minutes at their current speed, answered Navigator Lieutenant Torres. They're not even bothering to scan for ambush positions. It's like they want us to see them coming. They probably do, Steele mused. Military doctrine emphasizes intimidation through overwhelming force. They want us to see their numbers and retreat. Are we going to retreat, sir? Asked Weapons Officer Major Jackson, a slight grin playing at the corners of his mouth. Steele smiled back, the expression cold and predatory. Major, when has Task Force Omega ever retreated from a fight? Never, sir. And we're not about to start now. What's our current stealth status? All ships running silent, sir. Passive sensors only, minimal energy signatures. We're ghosts as far as their sensors are concerned. Steele studied the enemy formation with professional interest. They had arranged their fleet in a classic spearhead formation, with the 6 dreadnoughts forming the point and the smaller vessels providing support and protection. It was a formation designed to concentrate maximum firepower on a single target while maintaining defensive coverage. Traditional thinking, he muttered to himself. They still don't understand what they're dealing with. Communications Specialist Sergeant looked up from her station. Sir, incoming transmission from Admiral Harrison on the Sovereign. She's requesting a tactical briefing. Put her through. The main screen flickered to life, revealing the stern features of Rear Admiral Harrison, commander of Task Force Omega. Her silver hair was pulled back in a regulation bun, and her blue eyes held the steady gaze of someone who had seen too many battles to count. Colonel Steele, she began without preamble, I've been reviewing the intelligence reports on this fleet. 6 dreadnoughts is more firepower than we usually face. Yes, ma'am, but their formation is predictable, and their approach vector puts them exactly where we want them. Elaborate. Steele activated the tactical display visible to both ships. They are advancing through the asteroid field in the inner system, using it as cover from long-range sensors. What they don't realize is that we've had mining teams placing kinetic interceptors throughout that field for the past week. Admiral Harrison's eyebrows rose slightly. Interceptors. Tungsten rods in powered launch tubes, hidden inside hollowed-out asteroids. When the fleet reaches the optimal position, we'll have overlapping fields of fire from over 300 launch points. Each tube can fire 12 rounds at maximum velocity. That's comprehensive, Harrison said with what might have been approval. What about their defensive systems? Shields are designed to deflect energy weapons and absorb explosive impacts. They're not configured to handle multiple kinetic penetrators striking from different angles simultaneously. Our combat simulations show a 97% probability of shield collapse within the first 30 seconds of engagement. And after their shields fail, Steele's smile became genuinely unpleasant. Then we introduced them to the concept of overkill, ma'am. Every ship in Task Force Omega is armed with the Newmark VII kinetic bombardment system. We can put over 1,500 tungsten rods on target in less than 60 seconds. Admiral Harrison nodded slowly. Very well, Colonel, proceed with your plan, but I want minimal human casualties. These may be aggressive, but they're still sentients, and the Confederation expects us to show appropriate restraint. Understood, ma'am. We'll offer them one chance to surrender before we open fire. See that you do. Harrison out. The transmission ended, and Steele turned back to his tactical display. Around the bridge, his crew continued their preparations with the calm professionalism that had made Task Force Omega the most feared unit in the Confederation fleet. These men and women had trained together for years, perfecting their coordination until they functioned as a single organism. Sir, reported, long-range passive sensors are detecting increased chatter on communication frequencies. They're discussing their battle plan. What are they saying? Standard tactical coordination, mostly, but there are references to something called Operation Hammer Fall. It sounds like they're planning to use their dreadnought's main guns to bombard our positions from maximum range. Effective strategy, Steele admitted. If they knew where we were, Major Jackson, are all our kinetic platforms ready? Yes, sir. 347 launch tubes loaded and targeted. Each tube has a clear firing solution on at least one enemy vessel. Outstanding. Tours, what's our exit strategy if things go wrong? Pre-plotted jump coordinates to 3 different systems, sir. We can be gone in under 90 seconds if necessary. Steele nodded approvingly. Good commanders always planned for failure, even when victory seemed assured. The humans had learned long ago that overconfidence was the fastest way to get killed in combat. Sir, called out, we're receiving a general broadcast from the fleet, audio only. Let's hear it. A harsh, guttural voice filled the bridge, speaking accented standard galactic. Humans of Task Force Omega, this is Fleet Admiral X of the Imperial Navy. You are outnumbered and surrender immediately, and you will be treated according to the conventions of war. Resist, and you will be destroyed without mercy. Steele activated his own communication system. Fleet Admiral X, this is Colonel Steele of the Terran Colonial Marines. You are in violation of Confederation space and threatening the security of our member worlds. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded or face the consequences. The response was immediate and predictable. You dare threaten the Empire with your pathetic force? We have 64 ships of the line. You cannot hope to stand against us. Admiral, Steele replied calmly, you're making a fundamental error in your calculations. What errors? You're assuming this is going to be a fair fight. Steele cut the transmission and turned to his weapons officer. Major Jackson, you are authorized to fire when ready. Yes, sir. Initiating firing sequence now. Throughout the asteroid field, hidden launch tubes began their deadly work. Tungsten rods, each 1 meter long and weighing 50 kilograms, were accelerated to 30% of light speed by magnetic launchers. The first salvo consisted of over 4,000 projectiles, all targeted at the dreadnoughts. The enemy fleet was still advancing through the asteroid field when the first impacts registered on their sensors. Massive explosions erupted across the lead dreadnought's shields as kinetic penetrators struck with the force of nuclear weapons. Within seconds, the overlapping defensive fields began to fluctuate and collapse under the relentless bombardment. First target's shields are down, reported Jackson with professional satisfaction. Switching to hull targeting. The fleet tried to change course, but they were trapped within the asteroid field with limited maneuvering room. Their return fire was wild and unfocused, energy beams lashing out at empty space where they thought the human ships might be hiding. Second salvo away, Jackson announced, targeting their command and control systems. Steele watched with cold satisfaction as the second wave of projectiles found their marks. The lead dreadnought's bridge tower simply disintegrated under the impact of dozens of tungsten rods. Secondary explosions rippled along the vessel's hull as internal systems overloaded and failed. Admiral X is no longer transmitting, reported. I'm detecting massive casualties aboard the flagship. Continue the bombardment, Steele ordered. Target their engines and weapon systems. I want them disabled, not necessarily destroyed. The battle, if it could even be called that, lasted less than 10 minutes. When the kinetic bombardment finally ceased, the once mighty Third Battle Fleet was nothing more than drifting wreckage. Of the 64 ships that had entered the asteroid field, only 17 remained functional, and those were so heavily damaged that they posed no threat to anyone. All enemy vessels are disabled or destroyed, Jackson reported. No human casualties, minor damage to 3 of our kinetic platforms from debris impact. Steele nodded and activated fleet communications. All ships, this is Steele. Excellent work, people. Send rescue teams to assist survivors. Remember, they're prisoners of war now and they get treated according to the Geneva Convention. Sir, interjected, I'm reading massive subspace communication activity from the home territories. Word of this defeat is spreading fast. Let it spread, Steele replied. Maybe other potential aggressors will think twice before threatening Confederation citizens. Admiral Harrison's image appeared on the main screen again, her expression one of mixed admiration and concern. Colonel, that was thorough. What are our next steps? We'll secure the survivors and begin salvage operations on the vessels. Their technology might give us insight into their future capabilities. More importantly, we'll send a detailed battle report to High Command and the Confederation Council. And the political implications. Steele's expression hardened. The Empire attacked a diplomatic mission and threatened Confederation citizens. They got exactly what they deserved. If they want to escalate this conflict, they'll find out why Earth doesn't lose wars. The other Confederation species are going to be concerned about human military capabilities, Harrison warned. Some of them are already nervous about how quickly we've built up our fleet. Then they should be grateful we're on their side, Steele replied bluntly. Admiral, humanity didn't ask to be the Confederation's military arm, but when show up to help, you don't question their methods. You just point them at the enemy and get out of the way. Harrison chuckled. Understood, Colonel. Proceed with recovery operations. I'll handle the political side of things. As the transmission ended, Steele turned back to the tactical display showing the aftermath of the battle. Rescue shuttles were already moving among the wreckage, searching for survivors and providing medical assistance. It was a scene that perfectly encapsulated human military doctrine, overwhelming violence followed by humanitarian aid. Sir, called out, we're receiving communications from multiple Confederation worlds. They want to know if the threat has been neutralized. Tell them the threat is over, Steele replied, and remind them that Task Force Omega is always ready to respond when backup is needed. Lieutenant Torres looked up from his navigation console. Colonel, where should I plot our next patrol route? Steele studied the star chart displayed on his screen. The Confederation controlled hundreds of star systems spread across dozens of light years. Each one was a potential target for hostile forces, each one filled with citizens who deserved protection from the predators that lurked in the darkness between the stars. Set course for the Tau system, he decided. Intelligence reports suggest increased pirate activity in that region. Time to remind the local criminals why crime doesn't pay in Confederation space. Yes, sir, course plotted and ready. As the ships of Task Force Omega activated their stealth systems and vanished once again into the void, Steele reflected on how much the galaxy had changed since humanity had joined the Confederation. The old balance of power was shifting, and species that had grown comfortable with the status were learning to adapt to new realities. The Empire would rebuild, of course, but they would do so knowing that humanity was watching, waiting, ready to respond to any threat against the peace. And in boardrooms and command centers across the galaxy, other potential aggressors would hear about the Battle of Altair and think very carefully before challenging the members of the Confederation. Because when civilized worlds called for backup, they didn't just get another patrol fleet or diplomatic mission. They got who had spent their entire evolutionary history learning how to survive in a universe that wanted them dead. And those had brought all of their hard-won knowledge to the stars, along with weapons and tactics that made traditional warfare obsolete. The galaxy would never be the same. And for the first time in centuries, the peaceful species of the Confederation could sleep soundly knowing that somewhere in the darkness, predators were hunting the predators.